Welcome to Liberty's Cage, the America First podcast battling for a justice system that honors our Constitution. I'm Sarah McAbee with my co-host Shane Jenkins, and we have a special guest, Sarah Carpenter, with us. Sarah, how are you?
I'm well. How are you, Sarah?
Good. Shane, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, recovered from the weekend?
I'm trying to just now. The box showed us New York and Long Island, and good time that.
Yeah, for sure. Let's unpack the weekend. So on Friday, we saw Studio 6B live. Tell the audience about that.
No, it was Studio Six. Man, showed so much. I used to watch like every night, but not every nights. And really to get to meet, and just we did a few shots and had a good time. Kevin Downey Jr. Radio. Okay. Okay.
So on Saturday, we got up and we went to New York City and got to see the city itself, but it was really for DVS 7.0's rally. And in the rally, people got to speak and share their story, and it was just really fun because there were so many American patriots there. And then we left and we got to explore the city. And if you've seen the America First Warehouse van, it makes a statement. We had the door open with the lights on and the music playing, flags everywhere. And I will say that we did get a couple of fingers, but the majority of people really liked us. And then after that, we got to launch Liberty Cage with everybody. Shane, is your audio back?
I don't know. You can look at it right now. Technical difficulties.
Well, we got to launch Liberty's Cage with a live and in-person audience, which was really fun. And we can't thank everybody enough for showing up and supporting us. And then on Sunday, we got to go to do a Trump train and a rally with the Belmore Patriots. And I will say, I think one of the most surprising things is even people that are involved with this movement, they still don't know the details of January 6th. They know that it was a setup and they know that there were assets on the ground, but there were so many intricate details that still need to be told. And so that is what our goal is with Liberty's Cage. And as we have a guest, Sarah Carpenter. Sarah, will you tell us a little bit about your experience on January 6th?
Yes, I can. And it was so many things were going on that it is hard to sum up. It's hard to just, and to what you were saying, how people are waking up, and then there are some that really know. They know what happened. So it is a mix of when you tell the story, sometimes you don't realize how much they're aware of it. They know. And then you have people that just buy the whole lie of what transpired. So for me, I was looking for police that day, being a retired police officer. I was concerned for the Capitol. I was concerned for the fact that our election was stolen. And when the Capitol Police were breaking protocol and not acting in obvious ways that police officers who are to be acting, especially on a day like that, it really brought up my concern. And I went into the building on invitation by the police. When I found them, they waved me, showed me the door. That's a huge building. I would never have known how to get in. And so when I found the police, they showed the door. The open door, went in, and from there, to this day, I still want answers as to what happened.
Yeah, I think not only January 6th defendants, but Americans as a whole deserve answers into January 6th, going all the way to Nancy Pelosi denying the National Guard. I mean, you see what's happening right now in our country, and yet they want to say January 6th is the same thing as 9/11 and worse than Pearl Harbor. And I will say, Sarah, that I think it's very disheartening that you were on the ground on 9/11 and on the ground for January 6th, and they compared the two.
It's almost like God really has his hand in this, because I think he's making it so in their faces, giving them maybe even the opportunity to say, hey, you're lying. People are not going to go along with this any longer. And so much so that he positioned some of us supernaturally, really. I mean, even the day of 9/11, what brought me down there was through his grace, through his power, the courage through him. And again, January 6th, it was through his grace and his power that I was able to witness what I did that day, so that I can stand still and let the public know, those that really don't want to be lied to. I think we have to acknowledge the fact there are people out there who want to be lied to, who are against the Constitution, that live amongst us, and even may walk in the ranks of trusted positions of authority. And it's those things that I think this program and the two of you speaking on these issues, I think will really part the waters to make it clear, hey, if you're a police officer, I heard if you're in military, things like that, these protesters right now, they're actually protesting the Constitution. They're not for the Constitution. What they're doing is essentially protesting the Constitution. I think it could be brought down to that simple. That's a very simplified way of looking at it, but I think there's maybe some, if you're going to simplify it.
What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you
Oh,
think
Shane, go ahead.
officers behave? That even law enforcement sort of gives you, and I mean, I opinion about it, but years.
Yeah, Shane, it's maybe the weekend, huh? The weekend got us. You're still breaking up a little bit. You're hard to hear. Sarah, you're having that problem as well? Is that, can you?
A little bit, but it's other things, but that's okay. It just means that we have to come back to New York and do it live and in person more often.
Yes.
Okay, Sarah, so will you tell us a little bit about, so from January 6th on, did you find out you were on the FBI Wanted website, or how did that look for you?
It was almost immediately that I was taken aback. It was inside the building that, everything was happening so fast, but it was that recognition inside the building, oh my God, this is happening. Look what's happening, and even when I left the building, I was under huge amount of pressure from what just took place, and your brain's trying to catch up to what's happening. And it was on the ride home that their narrative was already in play. I left as soon as I left that building, I wanted to get home, and on the drive home is where I found out their narrative was already put in play, that we killed a police officer, that we insurrected, all these things. And I thought, and either God gave me the divine, the grace again to keep calm and to know, we know their playbook. We know that they do this, or at least maybe those who were awake a little bit before others, we see their game and how much control they have over the narrative in the media. So they were able to just splice in that whole 9/11. As a matter of fact, when I was in the building, a man whispered into my ear. And that's why I even brought up 9/11 inside the building. Because I said, I was at 9/11. This is nothing like 9/11. But it's only in retrospect that you can recognize what they were doing. So I really tried to say, okay, you got your narrative. I'm giving out mine, and mine is the truth, and I'm going to stick with it. As much as they tried to bully, they tried to manipulate, they threatened, the threats that I was receiving from my own federal attorney.
So when were you arrested?
I'm sorry, what was that?
When were you arrested?
I was arrested. So they came to my home on Martin Luther King Day, right after, which it is about in January. At the time, it was the date, and they came just to question me as to what happened, and I was. they were like, we're family, let's talk. And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, we're family, come, let's talk. So I gave them all the facts of what I had seen. Now, at this point, I saw what they were doing. So I gave them, and not knowing, like I didn't recognize how bad it had become, because I thought, okay, if I tell them, like, I saw a man on the front lawn steering people this way, I couldn't find police, I knew, like this wasn't right. And they knew. When they heard me, that officer knew. He said, oh, like they recognized it was entrapment, that type of thing. And they left. And I thought, good, maybe they're gonna, I didn't recognize how badly the FBI had become. They came back. They came back full force.
Yeah, for sure. Shane, can you jump in?
Helicopters. They came back like a month, I forget, 2 months later. Just went through the whole house. That'll take a few minutes to talk about. I'll cut myself there.
They used a X against you. You must still cut.
They used the what against? Could you say that, Sarah? I couldn't hear what Shane said.
No, I have an echo on mine end.
Yeah. They definitely used. Well, I think that in just to sum it up, it was traumatic what they did to me and my son, especially thinking, we're supposed to be family. You're right. We're supposed to be family. Why are you treating me as if, so, but God's going to do a miracle.
Yeah, he is. And when we get back, we're going to talk more about the DC jail and what happened in that with the constitutional rights denied.
Okay, we're on commercial? Yeah. Sorry, I didn't give you enough time there to do the next.
You got to try.
No, that's okay.
What do we need to do? Echo is.
Yeah.
Who broke the television? Can we laugh at that? Sounds a little mean.
As of this week, public gay sex will now be mandatory.
Am I the only one that could see his lips move? Cheekbones, baby.
I'm sorry, maybe I overreacted.
Are you a musician, comedian, actor, filmmaker, or artist who stands for traditional American values? Do you believe in the preservation of our nation, our culture, and our freedoms? If you share our passion for America and want to use your talents to make a difference, we want to hear from you. Our mission is clear. Through the arts, we uphold the principles of freedom, faith, family, and the American spirit. It's time to step up to the mic and make your voices heard. So contact us at AmericanConservativeArtists.com.
The dehumanizing rhetoric of Adolf Hitler, Donald Trump's language mirrors this directly.
Well, Hitler was duly elected.
Let's deal with Hitler, okay?
I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that is Mussolini Hitler-like language.
You say Nazi enough times, someone's going to actually have the guts to do it.
Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler.
What percentage of this event happening was due to Donald Trump's rhetoric?
Don't miss Trump next time.
What do you make of the excess deaths?
None of us, not the president, not those hypothetical guys in the smoky rooms fully know what's going on, but we can speak about the unfolding of recent history with certainty.
Donald Trump is an existential threat to our democracy.
That is not how it works. That is a threat to democracy.
No. No. You anti-Semitic piece of...
When you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their ideological bullshit.
Free fries when you get vaccinated? Vaccination.
Welcome back to Liberty's Cage. Capitol Shadows is where we start. Shane, the DC jails were hell for January 6th Patriots. Mold, sewage, roaches, you lived it. Tell us about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The DC Quad was something to behold. We black mold in itself, like you see cockroaches. There was enough mice running around that some guys caught some and kept them for pets. Even named one like a mouse. Whole another story. You know, a lot of things kind of talks. We're going to talk about park transit later, but you know, the medical treatment that we received was horrible. Scott Fairland was cancer treatment while he was here. Bart Shively was supposed to be receiving. I don't believe he properly applied that, which led us to where he had. But you know, they denied us basic human rights: haircut, religious service, patient with our families, fingernail clippers. It was just a tragedy the way they were treating, you know, and like we've said before, 72% of all January 6th people are first responders or veterans. And it is unfortunate that these people that the government trained to behave, to protect each other and to protect the Constitution and defend the public, and for them to treat them that way and to throw them in a situation like this where we're literally living in squalor, and in the heart of the beast. Like before I went to the DC jail, I knew that the DC jail was one of the worst jails in the nation. I believe it was like in the top 10 of worst jails to be in the United States. And so it's so bad that you know, in the federal prison, the guys from the DC jail have a reputation of being, there's something very wrong with the people from DC, and people stay away from the inmates that are in DC. And I believe it's partially a product of the environment that they live in the DC jail, and the way the guards treat them, and then the way they treat each other. It's just unfortunate that they have to endure that as well as we did. You know, we weren't, you know, and I tell a lot of people, I have a checkered past before I gave my life to Christ. And I've been to some of the worst jails in the nation, and to see people treated that way, the way we were treated in the DC jail, was just shocking to me. And so I can't wait for there to be accountability. I hope I get to walk in there one day and see some of those people get fired or get hauled out in handcuffs. That would heal a little piece of my heart right there.
Yeah, for sure. It wasn't just the place. The guards called you a white supremacist, locked you in solitary confinement. It's not justice, it's targeting. And that really only happened for January 6th defendants, because I believe you guys could talk to other pods through the windows, through the vents, through the walls. And when you guys were locked in, they were not. Is that right?
No, absolutely. And we were able to, eventually they moved us next door to another pod that had regular DC inmates in it. And sometimes guys would go to medical and they would be across the hallway from the DC inmates, or we could talk to them in passing kind of. And we found out information that, for instance, that they were allowing Muslims to use a religious exemption for the vaccine. And so they were able to get their visitation. They were able to get their time at the mosque. And or that, you know, we were being held in our cells like 23-1 or 22-2, 22 hours in our cell, 2 hours out. And while the rest of the jail was doing 10 hours out a day or 5 hours out a day. So we were being treated differently. And then if you think about it, the inmates in the jail are 99.9% black. And then the guards are probably the same, 99.9% black. Well, there's a lot of people from Africa that actually work there. But you know, you label somebody a white supremacist and a domestic terrorist, and then you've got this this victim mentality that they came to our house in DC and they attacked our city. You know, like there's like a vendetta. The guards took it personally, and that was the same thing in the jurors in my trial. They take this stuff personally, and it put us in a very dangerous situation. And for instance, they were like Lonnie Kaufman and Scott Fairlam had to be shackled. Like when we first got there, we were shackled. Everywhere we went outside of the pod, we were shackled and handcuffed, while all the other inmates were not shackled and not handcuffed. So they were moving us around through other inmates while we were restrained, because we were the worst of the worst. We were the domestic terrorists. And it was very dangerous. And the guards have even told some of the guys, like, if those guys jump on you, there's nothing I can do to help you. And so it was just a very, you know, and it frustrates me. And like I've said about the FBI, I wish somebody would have slammed their badge on the table and said, you know what, I'm not going to treat these guys differently. And thank God, one of the officers up there in particular, Officer Abdullah, treated us. He's a Muslim, and a black man, but he saw the humanity in us. He was worried about our mental health. He saw what we were going through, and he was the one that we finally talked to, and he let us have Bible study, and he's a Muslim, but he let us have a Christian Bible study. And so, and that's kind of the angle you and I are attacking on this prison reform thing. We want somebody to think outside the box, and somebody have the courage to stand up and see the humanity in these people, regardless of what they're in there for, just because it's the right thing to do. And it's what Jesus would do. And if we want to live and be ambassadors for Christ, then we need to treat people accordingly. And I think that's, once you kind of get corrupted and you get this power of you're a guard now in a prison, and you just feel like you can act any kind of way, and you have this power over people, and that's a dangerous thing. You have to see first the humanity in them. You have to see the Christ in them, or just see that they're a person going through a hard time. They're in jail and they're being crushed by the government. You would think that they would empathize with you, but they don't. They're so used to the other side of the jail just beating the crap out of the inmates and dragging them to the hole, and it's basically like a war. They're very confrontational with the other inmates. They had to kind of, after we raised so much Cain in there, like, passively protesting and organizing our families and having enough people call Congress and come up there to the jail and everything, they finally kind of just stepped back from us and were like, we can't mess with those guys because they're going to get us in trouble, or they're going to get Congress people in here, and they're going to bring awareness to it. And even so much to the point when Marjorie Taylor Greene and Louis Gohmert came into the jail and saw the conditions that everybody was living in, they ended up shutting down part of the other side of the jail and shipped 400 inmates out of the DC jail because it was so awful. So the guys were thinking, they were like, man, once the inmates saw that, they were like, thank you guys. You guys are J6ers, man. Thank y'all for getting them to shut down that part of the jail, because it was horrible over there. And they don't care. The guards are just coming in there to do their job and go home and get their paycheck. They don't give a damn about it. And so, we have an opportunity to change it, and I think that's what we're going to be doing.
Did you ever feel like there were any moments that they were not trying to break you all, but that the fact that you guys did sit-ins, were there any moments where you were like, all hell is going to break loose in here?
Well, it got to the point to where it was like, what else can they take from us? And we're in here together, and sometimes you got to stand up. And I thank God that the men had the courage, and some of us had, the foresight and the leadership to be able to just say, we're going to passively, in an organized manner, protest what these people are doing to us. And so, yeah, I mean.
And did that help? Did things change after you guys did those sit-ins and had those town halls?
I would love to say, yeah, they did. They brought the U.S. Marshals in several times, but we did get a lot of attention to Congress. And it was kind of a thing where you just kind of got to go through the process, and you got to document. And so now when we've been denied all these things for 2 years, and we've shown that, in those 2 years, the U.S. Marshals were probably in there 3 or 4 times. And so now, why did none of those things change after we addressed it to the head of the U.S. Marshals? Now you can go back and you can show, well, hey, this guy came in here and he knew you weren't getting visits for 2 years. And he knew, because we documented everything we told him. We probably still have some of the notes and some of the stuff that I brought home from the jail. But now we can go back and say, that dude knew exactly what we were going through, and he gave us the runaround. He just, blah, 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 said, I'm going to do something, and never did anything. And so it became effective later on. When Troy Nehls finally came, some things started to change. But and that's, I think, the beauty of standing the gap. We are going to be a voice for the voiceless. We already are, and we were doing it from inside, and we're going to continue to do it out here. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I think it's important. If people really want to see what went on in the jail, they need to go back through your Twitter. When I was looking some things up today, some posts popped up, and it was just, you were trying to get information out to the general public. And that's really how the real J6 and Stand in the Gap started, was they truly were trying to crush your all spirit and keep you locked away, and, much like a redheaded stepchild. But, and so you were getting information out, and that's where a lot of the call of actions came to be. And it wasn't just for January 6th defendants. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the general public was thanking January 6th defendants when they would pass them in the hallways, or when you guys were even leaving on the buses going to different federal prisons. They were grateful because what they had been endured and screaming from the rooftops for all of this time started to change.
Well, and they've kind of lowered the status. They've just kind of lowered the status quo to where the jail's so messed up. They just like kind of like, well, this is just what life has become, and that shouldn't be the case. And it's an honor to stand up for all those men and women from DC too. It doesn't, and that's the thing. That's the difference about us and the left. Like we will stand up for what's right for everybody. Like I'll stand up for everybody's First Amendment right, everybody's Second Amendment right. I'm not going to just do it because it's the conservatives or the Republicans or the Christians. I want to do it for everybody.
Well, I think it boils down to we need to look at the incarcerated population as American citizens because they still have constitutional rights. They are doing time for something that they did. Sure, wrong place, wrong time, made a bad decision. And they do, like you said, there are places for people like rapists and murderers and, all of that sort of thing. But there are people in there that could be good people. And I think that's the thing about Stand in the Gap. But one of the things that we are going to talk about on the next segment, if you briefly want to touch upon it, is that the medical care was a disgrace. And Judge Lamberth actually called it a civil rights violation in 2021.
No, for sure. And there's many, many instances where we could talk about that, whether it's Christopher Quagland and his, I forget what you call it. He has, he can't eat gluten, but I don't remember what that's called. But to Scott Fairlamb, to my shoulder being broken, and then they said that was a previous injury. This is crazy. So, yeah, we'll touch more on that here in the next segment. But
yeah, for sure, we're going to particularly stick around because we're going to talk about a very special January 6th defendant that is in layman's terms passing away quite literally at this moment, and we are working very hard to ensure that his wishes, his final wishes, are completed. So stay tuned.
Corrupt judges, broken families, families torn apart. This isn't justice. If you've been wronged by the system, join us. Don't stand alone. Hi, I'm Gary Jacobs, president of Americans for Legal Reform. We're the oldest legal reform group in the United States. The justice system in the United States should be transparent, fair, and open to everybody and accessible. Unfortunately, many times that's not the case. At Americans for Legal Reform, we are here to help. Join the movement. Visit AmericansForLegalReform.com and help reform the system before it fails you.
The America First Ultra MAGA Store. For all your MAGA needs. We sell t-shirts, tumblers, flags, hats, sneakers, bumper stickers, and a whole lot more. The most patriotic America First retail store. The America First Ultra MAGA Store.
Welcome everybody to the Not So Newlywed Show, where three couples are going to compete for really great prizes. Okay, Donna, we asked Mike, who complained first on your honeymoon, you or him?
What do I think?
Yeah, what do you think?
I think he said...
Lisa, this ain't the SATs. Just tell us what... Donna, who complained first on the honeymoon?
I'm sure it was me, but I have no idea.
Donna is right.
No, it's always me.
What celebrity would you pick for a one-day pass?
For me?
Yeah, for you, not for him.
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon! Wow! Who do you hate the most on her side? That rotten no...
There are so many choices.
Thank you all, and thank you for coming out.
Hi, my name is Elena Ruseva, aka Megalangela. Please check my art at www.megalangela.vip.
America First Warehouse was really the most patriotic venue that you can ever imagine. We wanted to build something for people to be able to come to and feel so comfortable and so relaxed because there is nothing out there like it. We give an opportunity for people to really feel good about themselves and about this great country.
Welcome back to Liberty's Cage. I told you we were going to talk about a very special January 6th defendant, and Bart Shively is a hero. He's a Marine, a January 6th patriot. He was battling non-Hodgkin's lymphoma even while he was incarcerated in the DC Gulag. And his story is breaking our heart. Shane, you knew Bart for 2 years while you guys were in jail. What was he like fighting cancer behind bars?
Bart was a happy guy. He's a big old teddy bear. He's a big man. He's at least my size, maybe a little bulkier. I'm like 6'1", 250, but he's a big, jolly giant. He's a sweetheart, and he really I think he was diabetic or borderline diabetic, and the food they were feeding us was horrible. And if you got on a diabetic tray, it was way worse than regular food. And so I can only imagine fighting cancer and getting the poor treatment that he was getting. And when he did get chemo, I don't know if I've never had chemo, but I've heard how awful it is. And so he didn't really show it. You know, he didn't show that he was going through that. I know it had to be horrible, and it was bad there. He had lesions and stuff breaking out on him. It was just a heartbreaking to see, to know that. I didn't know. Did you knew that he was a Marine for 7 years, I believe? And it's really sad to be crushed by your government, and then on top of that, to be having to deal with cancer and chemotherapy, like going through all that and lose everything. And so it is a tragedy, and just, I hope you can hear this, Bart, that we're praying for you, and we love you, buddy.
Yeah, for sure. We're definitely out here fighting for him and all January 6th defendants. Bart's on hospice now with hours, days left. Recent post on X with no prior record, yet 18 months held without bail. It's unjust. Shane, how did Bart's health struggle affect you all and the others in jail? I mean, I remember at some points we were putting out calls to actions where we didn't even know where he was. We were just hoping he was being taken to the hospital.
Yeah, no, I mean, there was times we had to always stand up for, like, whenever, like the sit-ins. It's kind of like, finally, sometimes enough has to be enough. We have to stand up for each other and do what's right. And, we resisted for Bart, for others that were suffering under medical malpractice, is what I would call it. But it was just a tragedy. There's nothing we could do. Can't give him medicine. Can't, do anything for him. We just have to walk with him through that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember at one point he was in solitary confinement, and there were other January 6th defendants like across the hall, like yelling at him because he was just laying there. They had he had chemo before that, and he was just sleeping on a steel bunk. I didn't know what it looked like, but a steel bunk, and they were just trying to make sure that he was even alive, and that is not just for the DC jail. Shane, I'm sure you have stories about medical in the federal facility.
No, absolutely. And, for instance, where I left from, Terre Haute, Indiana, Medium, there are people that regularly test positive for H. pylori, which is a precursor really for stomach cancer. That particular virus or bug or whatever it is, it's in the water, contaminated water that they were given to the inmates. And they knew that people go to medical and they document, hey, you've got H. pylori. Hey, you've got H. pylori. So they know there's something going on, and they continue to leave it open. And we talked about it, I think, this past weekend, that the place is condemned, and they have a factory there that makes $3 million a year, I guess, and or maybe a month, you have to pay $1 million fine to keep the prison open. So they're willing to pay the $1 million fine to make the $2 million. It's just, and then leave people under those horrible conditions. So there, any number dental, you can't. It's 2-year wait to get your teeth cleaned. They don't do fillings. They will do is, if you have something wrong with your teeth, they'll pull it. It's like, you can get it pulled, you can just deal with it. And that's, I would do that to anybody, even my worst enemy would do that.
No, it's such a disgrace too, because you think of the people, American citizens, not American citizens, that are in this country, and they get free medical care. If you walk into a hospital, they have to treat you. And we're not even treating our own citizens that way.
No, that's right. It's unacceptable. I don't understand how it's even legal for that to go on in America. I feel like people should have regular checkups, should have regular dental appointments, regular teeth cleaning. You need a filling, get a filling. I understand you shouldn't be getting veneers in prison, but root canals, whatever it is, to help have good teeth and healthy teeth should be done. I don't understand how.
Well, and I think the time too. I mean, you spent how many months? 32 months in the DC jail before you went off to federal prison. So when you got to federal prison, that's really when your time started, right? So you said 2 years for dental cleaning, and I think it's a year for physical. But you had already been in jail for almost 3 years prior to that, but they didn't start that time clock until you arrived in Philly.
That's right. When I did break a veneer while I was in there, so I had the Bubba tooth going on. I got out.
It's just crazy that they don't take care of their true American citizens. And we can sit here and talk about that all day long, but talk is cheap and it's all about action. And so for the next few minutes, Shane, I just really want to talk about how Stand in the Gap is stepping up, not just for January 6th defendants, but right now specifically for Bart. And we're raising money for Bart's funeral and to bring January 6th patriots to his celebration of life, because that's one of his last wishes.
Yeah, I've been dealing with this for a few days. I can't begin to understand what Bart is going through, but I've tried to see the bright side. And somebody said it on we had a prayer thing, a Bible study on Twitter Spaces last night with January 6th guys, C2B guys running. And the one upside I can see I'm going to get to see a lot of my brothers and sisters, and we're going to get to honor Bart and send him off and wish him well. I don't like to talk about it now, as he's deteriorating. But I think, he's going to be a reason for us to gather together and to honor him. So, we make sure that his dogs are taken care of. We want to make sure that he gets the funeral that he deserves. The military burial, whether it's, I don't know if it's bagpipes, if it's 21 gun salute, honor guard. I don't know what exactly a military funeral entails, but I want to see him off, and I want to see him off well. And I don't want this to, spare any expense to that effect. And I want as many people to be there that want to be there as possible. So if the American public wants to help us fund that and get us January 6 people that want to attend, then please go to standinthegap.com/Bart.
Yeah, for sure, because we're definitely fighting for Bart's memory, and it kind of just brings tears to my eyes just even thinking of January 6 defendants that are going to be there, that serve time with him, that are going to be able to share some really good stories and memories of him.
So it's something that, like we've talked about, it's been difficult mentally and emotionally for all of us. And I think Sarah can testify to that. All of us, none of us really feel whole, and it's been difficult. And I just don't, I know I am, I will, whatever God will give me strength to get through it, but I'm not ready to bury one of our own yet.
No, I have always said if it's time for Bart to go home, then the Lord's done with him here. And I think it gives even more reason for January 6 defendants to fight, because you think of what his life was, a living hell for the last 4 years because of the federal government. And now he was literally fighting for his life against the federal government. It gets no bigger than that. And then fighting for his life medically. And he should have not spent a day in jail, and he should have been able to do the things that he wanted to do. He got this cancer from Camp Lejeune, and so that's kind of inevitable for these people. But he should have been able to be out and be with his family and his dogs and do all of the things that he wanted to do. But he even got out prior to the pardons, and he had to rebuild his life while still fighting for his life.
Well, and due to the weaponized nature of the way they treated January 6th, if it would have been, basically what would be a simple assault that would probably be punishable by 90 days in jail or something, like maybe 30 days in jail. There's no reason he shouldn't have been able to be out on bond for a medical exemption, to be able to be with family and friends and his dogs and everybody else. And it's unfortunate they treated that man that way. It's a slap in the face after Camp Lejeune giving him cancer. And then here you come with this, and you weaponize the government and crush this man. And he's taking on the world. And it's a tragedy. And so I hope that God keeps his hand over him and gives him peace. And we're cheering for you. We love you, Bart.
Yeah, for sure. It's important to honor his wishes and do what we can for him to, walk this road home with him. And that's what we're called to do as Christians. And that's our brother in faith. And so, Shane, what would you say to Bart right now if he was hearing us?
I would just say, buddy, you know, a lot of people love you. I could go down the list, Don and Donna. You know, we love you. I know this has been hard. It's unfair. I don't like it. But God has got you, bro. And I know if there's one thing that I know that you love Jesus Christ. I know that I'm going to get to see you again someday. And I don't want you hurting. And I just want you to be at peace and rest. And I pray that God will pull you through this. But ultimately accept his will for your life. And I'm cheering for you no matter what, here or in heaven. I know all the January 6 guys will have an angel looking down on them. So we love you, bro.
Yeah, for sure. It's a never easy thing to do. But, you know, I heard this morning that he had visitors yesterday, and there's a couple of things that made him smile. And that's what brought him through to this morning. And he was up walking around. And so you just really never know. So we're asking the American patriots to rally around us again, to fight for Bart, to pray for Bart. Like Shane said, you can go to standinthegap.foundation/Bart. You'll read a little bit more about him, but on there is our donation page, and 100% of your donations that you give through that link will go to Bart and his family and all of the different things that we are doing to help walk him home on this journey.
Yeah, for sure.
So when we get back, oh, Shane, sorry, go ahead. When we get back, we will talk more about reintegration, and we're going to pray for Bart together. So stay tuned.
I told you this was crazy. I'm out of here.
No, that. Free stuff for all. I could be such a downer.
For you, bow to the master staff. Come to me. Oh my God, this guy's from Jersey.
Hi, how you doing? Fuck off my stage.
I'm pretty sure I'm a woman.
No, you're not, Steve. Oh! Oh!
A little wet on my side.
Now instead of a poke, you're getting a smack!
What have I done?
Hi, my name is Elena Ruseva, aka Megalangela. Please check my art at www.megalangela.vip.
It's me, Joe the Box, at the America First Warehouse, the most patriotic venue in all the land. We just finished up 2 incredible parties like you wouldn't believe. Packed house, sold out. Hey, Scotty Lebedo. This is a nice piece from Scotty, huh? That's what he did. Now, I did tell you that we was in the America First Warehouse, but no, we're not. We're here at the America First Motor Club. Come on in Sunday mornings. We love America. America First, everybody. Come on and see us.
Are you a musician, comedian, actor, filmmaker, or artist who stands for traditional American values? Do you believe in the preservation of our nation, our culture, and our freedoms? If you share our passion for America and want to use your talents to make a difference, we want to hear from you. Our mission is clear. Through the arts, we uphold the principles of freedom, faith, family, and the American spirit. It's time to step up to the mic and make your voices heard. So contact us at AmericanConservativeArtists.com.
America First Warehouse was really the most patriotic venue that you can ever imagine. We wanted to build something for people to be able to come to and feel so comfortable and so relaxed, because there is nothing out there like it. We give an opportunity for people to really feel good about themselves and about this great country.
Welcome back to Liberty's Cage. Sarah, before we broke, you wanted to talk about, you were in a women's federal prison. So can you give us that point of view?
Sure. Originally, I never surrendered because I've surrendered my life to Jesus Christ. So when I was in I was in Brooklyn originally, MDC Brooklyn, where Epstein wasn't Epsteined at this point. I mean, but I was there for a few months. Then I was transferred over to Aliceville, Alabama, which I was sent so far. I have an elderly parent. They put me so far away from my family, so there was no visitation possibility. And also in Brooklyn, let's just say the guards worked very closely with the prisoners. And then in Aliceville. So, and on my transfer over from Brooklyn to Alabama, I was put in solitary confinement because I was a January 6er. That's what they told me. So I was there for a week. It probably would have been longer, but every day I went at them and I said, I want to speak to the warden. I spoke to the warden. I made it clear to her what she was doing was not in the guidelines of the BOP, that she was breaking the guidelines of the BOP by keeping me into solitary confinement. And finally, I was let into general population. And I have to say, the whole time, it was interesting. The women right away, they find out, as women do, you know, we all find out things right away, and it gets around really quick. Well, I was a January 6er, and they wanted to get messages to Donald Trump. Please, you know, help us in here, because there's very little communication from when you're in jail. And while I was in jail, a woman died from medical neglect, and there were a few suicides. Now you'd say, oh, well, you know, these people are in jail, they probably had hard lives or anything, you know, things like that, which is never justified. You should never. But it really was clear that because we've had such a corrupt government, that our leadership has been so corrupt. I think that when you come down the line, it's so inhumane, and there's going to be no accountability. There were women in jail who did far less than what Nancy Pelosi is, what we know of with her trading, insider trading, things like that. There's women in jail right now who were overly prosecuted. It's a crime what's happening to American citizens. And it was also a deportation center. So women who were not legal were housed in this detention center, and they want to go home. They're asking to go home, and it's like, yeah, just let him go back to. Why are we keeping people here that can clearly be deported? So it's almost like a head count thing where money, it's about money. It's not about humanity. And I think if people really got a good eye opener, put aside the hypocrisy, put aside the politics, and just looked at the way our country, and again, I think it should start at the top, and then we'll see big changes where it needs to be. So.
Yeah, Sarah, I actually think you were housed with Beverlyn Williams, who was a pro-life activist who was praying outside of an abortion clinic. She also got pardoned by President Trump, but I believe she was in Aliceville as well.
She was, and also Audrey Southard. She was another January 6th, so she had like 4 years, and she's an opera singer. Actually, while we were there, I do every year a 9/11 art exhibit. It's an art memorial, and I was seeking. Oh, that's the mental health issues in the prison is outrageous, and I went. I was avoiding them. I just didn't want to. I said no to every medical thing they offered me because I just didn't trust them. But you know, if you were going to be there a long time, you need medical care, and the medical neglect was how they operated. and also the mental health care. So prior to 9/11, I went and I sought help because I said, I really don't know how I'm going to handle this right now. And one man laughed at me when I asked if they did any type of 9/11 memorial, and he was a reverend, and he laughed at me. No, we don't do. And I thought, my God, what a bizarre response, you know? So I held my own 9/11 memorial, and Audrey sang the national anthem. It was really moving. It was beautiful. We did a little prayer group, and it was. But it really, I think.
Yeah, I love the camaraderie behind bars with January 6th defendants. You know, we can talk about that on another episode. But, you know, there were hopium dens that were done in D.C. and really just how January 6th defendants bonded and really helped. Shane, you can talk about that and attest to how it was in D.C. and then when you went off to federal prison and you were by yourself.
Yeah, no, I think about it. We were talking about the book of James versus count it all joy when you encounter trials. I think that those moments, like Sarah just shared about, are making a joyful moment, even, you know, though it's about a tragedy of 9/11 and all that, but you found somebody, a sister, and you guys honored the fallen from 9/11. Just, I don't think it sounds like you'll never forget that experience. And it's kind of like the Thanksgiving and the 4th of July that we had. And, you know, every holiday we would do something. We would cook a meal together, or, you know, and then every night sing an anthem together. There's just a lot to be said for being crushed and being under fire and coming together and having somebody that you can lean on and somebody that you know is your brother or sister.
Just to throw in too, there's January 6s that I've been in contact with that I didn't know prior. I don't know, but they lost parents. Some lost family members. Well, and they were not given phone calls. They were not able to see. So I don't have all the. I know that happened, but I can't really remember who these people were. So there's so many people we need to acknowledge that went through things that should not have been.
Well, even you speaking to that, John Mellis's father passed away. John Mellis was in jail with me. Dan Caldwell's mother passed away while we were in the DC jail. While I was in federal prison, my close friend, Ann Dolby, who was taking care of all of my financial things on the outside for me, and who I know from church and Bible study, she passed away. And it was just like, man, to think that we would have been able to be with our family, our friends, and our loved ones in those situations if it was not for the way this January 16th was weaponized against us. Because it was, at worst, a protest that got out of hand, you know, and in other direction, it was insurrection and an entrapment operation to cover up a stolen election. So I feel like, what they say on 9/11, so you got some explaining to do. That they can compensate us and make sure that our families and friends are made whole.
Yeah, Shane, will you take 2 minutes and talk about what this looks like now, how Stand in the Gap is fighting back against these things now that January 6th defendants are out?
Well, yeah, I think we have a few different ways to attack this, whether it's through Congress, inflation. I know President Trump he's given people the knowledge that he's pro prison reform. He wants to change this, just like he made Alice Johnson, who was a drug mule and I had a life sentence, I guess. He pardoned her and made her the pardon czar. So that tells you that the man has a heart for the people who are being beaten, crushed by the government. And but I think we need to pass some legislation. I think we need to repeal the 93 crime bill that Biden wrote. I just think there's some things that we could go. I think the BOP needs to be a lot of investigations into these prisons, like you said. Sarah just said a minute ago that the guards and the inmates were working together, and I witnessed the guards gangs coordinating and working together. And world does that happen? It would be like, Sarah, you're a law enforcement officer. Imagine city police working together with the gangs in your city to, you know, orchestrate hits and stuff like that. It's fucking crazy. And so, and we know that the drugs are coming in likely through the guards, so a lot of times through drones and stuff like that. But there's no enforcement. And, you know, part of it is I feel like the guards didn't feel like they had top cover because the previous BOP director was more worried about the guards calling inmates by their proper pronouns for getting hormone therapy treatment surgeries or sex change surgeries than she was about protecting it than having her guards back, because the guards are not going to put their neck out on the line when they know that this director is not going to give them top cover. And so they're like, we're just going to stay under the radar. We're going to do minimal work to just get through the day and get for our families and keep our jobs.
Just real quick thought on that. There were men in my prison. I just have to throw that in there as inmates.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy. Where does that in America, of course?
Yeah, for sure. So Stand in the Gap is fighting back, and we need your help. We need American patriots to come alongside of us, people to offer their services to us. You know, this is a big battle that we're fighting against the federal government, one of the biggest programs. And will you take the last 45 seconds, and we want to come together and pray for Bart?
Yeah. Lord, we love you. We thank you. We lift our brother Bart Shively up to you, God. We just ask that you give him peace, heal him if it's your will, Lord God. We trust that we know you're a healer, you're a redeemer, you're a restorer. And if you will, restore our brother. And if it's time to call him home, Lord, then take him home. And embrace him to your chest and love him like we know you do. We just ask that you continue to watch over him and his family and just give him peace, Lord. We thank you for all that you do in our lives. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us on this show. And Shane, as always, it's good to be your co-host. Join us next week on Liberty's Cage as we continue to uncover January 6th.
Yeah. God bless y'all.